Hi guys, welcome to week 3, and before we get into today's maths lesson, I just wanted to share a little problem with you that I've got. I'm in my kitchen, I'm about to make a coffee, and I was just wondering which mug I should use to put my coffee in, because once I sit down and start working, I don't want to get up and I need a really big cup of coffee. So how can I measure which of my mugs will have the most coffee in it? Which one will let me put the most amount of coffee in? How do I measure that? I'm thinking that the weight of the mug, that's not going to help me, or how long it is. There must be another way that I can measure the amount of liquid that's going to go into one of these mugs. So I think that's what we should talk about today. So let's get stuck into it. So hi guys, yes, as I've kind of suggested, I'm thinking today is the day to start talking about what we call capacity. So with my mug, we know there's different ways I can measure it and find out lots of information about it. We could measure to find out how long it is, that's its length, how tall it is, that's its height. We could talk about how heavy it is, see if it's heavier or lighter than some other things. Or we could even think about the area of one of the surfaces of my mug. So maybe this flat surface here, we could try and see if this area is big or small, or try and compare it to another surface. But none of those things are going to help me with how much coffee I can get into it. So that's another type of measurement, and we call that its capacity. We're talking about how much can a container hold, and that's the type of measurement that's going to be useful for me today, and one that you can learn. So it's just another type of measurement that we can do to help us compare objects or find out more about them. So let's talk about capacity. Okay, so capacity, it's all about finding out how much a container can hold. And normally it's the amount of liquid like water, or sometimes sand, or something that pours. It's how much of that the container can hold. And when we're talking about capacity and we're comparing the different capacity between containers, we often use language like this. Does it hold more? Does it hold less? Has this cup got the biggest capacity, or has my cup got a small or smallest or the smaller capacity? So there's some of the words that we'll be using. Now, obviously, we can only measure capacity where the object that we're measuring has a hole in it and it's something we can actually fill up. So we generally measure the capacity of containers, things that we can fill. If I was trying to measure the capacity of a book, well, there's no way to fill it up with water or liquid or sand, so we can't measure the capacity. It does still have a thickness and takes up space, and we call that volume. So we would actually measure a volume of something that we can't fill, but Katie will talk about that later in the week. So you're going to do an experiment today where we're going to find 5 different containers in our house, and we're going to try and work out which one has the biggest capacity and which one has the smallest capacity. So your containers can be anything. They can be plastic bottles or recyclable items. They could be little cups, plastic cups like that. You could even use glass jars, anything at all. It doesn't have to be clear, it can even be opaque, but we'd like you to find 5 containers that you can fill up with water. We're going to use a little scoop or a small cup, and we're going to count how many scoops or cups go into each one. And so you're probably already thinking that this one's pretty big and I can probably get lots of scoops of water into that one compared to this one, which is pretty small. So you really might have some ideas about the size of your containers and what capacity they might have. But it depends a bit on the shape of the container. If you've got a low, wide one, you might not be sure whether it holds as much as a tall, skinny one, for example. So try and find a variety of containers, and you might want to give them a number or a letter or a name or a color so that you'll be able to write down later which one was the biggest and which one was the smallest. All right, I'm going to show you an example outside, and then you'll be able to do it yourselves at home. Let's go. Okay, so here I am outside. I've got my 5 different containers. Yours don't have to be as big as this. This is just what I could find, and they don't need to be clear either. I just wanted to do it so you could see. So I've given them names. I've got Freya here, Ruby, India, James, and Luke. And some of my containers, like India and Freya, they're pretty similar in size. So it's going to be interesting to see which one has the most capacity and holds the most amount of water. And to work it out, I'm going to scoop water in using this little cup over here. So we'll count how many goes into each of these and try and work out the order of most capacity or biggest capacity to the smallest or least. All right, let's give it a go. Okay, here we go. We're going to see how many of these little cups of water go into each one. We're starting with Freya. That's 1 scoop. We've got to make sure each cup is full, otherwise it's not very accurate. 2. Yeah, well, that's it. So that's 9 scoops went into Freya. Let's see how the others compare. All right, Ruby's turn. 1 into Ruby. 2. What? About 2 for Ruby. So 9 for Freya, 2 for Ruby. All right, India, yours looks bigger, but is it bigger than Freya? $11, and I reckon we can get 1 more in. $12. All right, so here now we're on to James, and it'll be interesting to see if he's in between 9 and 12. And 9, so there you go. James and Freya actually have the same capacity, 9 little cups. There you go, they're just different shapes. And we've got Luke on the end. I think we're all pretty confident that Luke's going to have the most capacity. 12, well, that's equal to India now. 13, all right. So we were pretty confident that Luke was the biggest and had the biggest capacity. So I think we've seen that Ruby is definitely the smallest with 2. And then Freya and James were next with 9. India was the next one, the next biggest with 12. And Luke has the highest capacity with more than 20. So there you go. You could do the same activity, see how much water it takes to fill each of your containers, and then order them from largest capacity to smallest, or smallest to largest. Give that a go.
It's like 22.5.
So there you go, guys. We've put them in order from least capacity, which was little Ruby, all the way up to Luke, who had 23 cups. You don't have to use coloured water like we did. We just wanted to show you on the video so it was easier to see the water filling up. And you can use any containers that you want. When you're scooping in, make sure you've got the same scoop for all of them, and then you fill it up to the top each time so that you're being accurate with your measuring. All right, we hope you enjoy that. Give that a go and write down the order of your containers from smallest capacity to largest capacity.